we'll talk about the coaches poll. So a lot of people don't realize this. This is like one of my favorite things of the postseason is, so the coaches poll exists. It used to be factored in the BCS. It is not obviously anymore because we don't have computer rankings. But
which is wild, the fact that used to be a thing.
Yes, it is. It is. I don't know what, like, don't get me started on the BCS, like the computer, like, well, anyway, we don't need to go down that road. But it is interesting because the final coaches poll is public. And it is true when you hear, oh, the coaches poll, the coaches don't actually vote. That is largely true during the season. But at the end, there are still some coaches who may not pay super close attention to their ballot. But more coaches take a heavier hand on the final ballot, which you see some teams move, in part because of bowl season, in part because coaches actually know this is going to be public. None of the other ballots are public, and it's always fascinating. So let's start with Michigan. Michigan ended up just receiving votes. They're number 29. Chris, do you think Ryan Day had them on his top 25?
I hope so.
He did not. He did not. Take from that what you will. To me, it's very funny. They got a bunch of points. They weren't in the final poll, so it's not like inexcusable. It's just very funny to me. Like, those guys, we lost them, but they suck anyway. Mind you, only half the coaches vote, so that's like 67 coaches. Sometimes it's not a perfect half. Sometimes coaches will decline or drop out, or if they get fired or whatever. But they rotate it, so some coaches just will never do it. There's a few coaches that will never do it.
So hold on. Ryan Day doesn't rank Michigan. Does that make the loss worse or better? What, like, don't you want to rank them high because it makes your loss not as bad? But
either way, it's funny.
But then
I think if he had them like 12th, I don't know if that's funnier or less funny. I'm not sure.
But also then you're kind of taking a shot at your rival by not ranking that. That's the hilarious part of the coaches bowl. See, I think was it Steve Spurrier who used to always like rank his teams like really 25. High. He'd always give them like a top 25 ranking when he was at Duke back in the day or something like that. He would always kind of have fun with the coaches poll, but I don't care about the coaches poll during the season. Nobody really does. It's just the last one. It's just the last one when they,
because you have to put it on paper. You can't like do it's a physical ranking of what these coaches think. Our guy,
coaches, Ryan Day, come on the pod and explain why you didn't rank Michigan, please.
Do we think Ryan Day watched the ReliaQuest Bowl?
What was that, New Year's? No. Was that the same day as the Rose Bowl? Probably not then.
Well, then, but probably, right? Maybe you're in the hotel and don't do anything. Maybe turn it on. I'd like to know what percentage of the ReliaQuest Bowl Ryan Day watched. Again, don't schedule Delaware. Our guy, Barry Odom, UNLV head coach maybe not when he followed it, but going to Purdue. Anyway, he ranked his Rebels number 17. That's okay. UNLV finishes 24th.
I had them 24th. I had them 24th.
It's pretty high. 24th is fair. That's part of this too, is the coaches have to rank their own team, and like then you get into some weird psychology of like, this is why it's one of my favorite exercises, because these coaches get twisted in a pretzel where like that doesn't really make sense. The 17 is interesting. What's more interesting is who his team is ahead of: Illinois, Iowa State, Miami, and South Carolina. I don't know. I think UNLV is not favored over any of those teams. It's very funny to me. I like it too.
I would be gassing up my own team as well, even if I was on the way out. Just make that win look as good as possible. Maybe it gets you up an extra spot in that coaches poll. Maybe it gets you a bonus or something like that. So like in the college football playoff rankings, the athletic directors, former players, everybody, they're assigned who their connections are to, and when that team is talked about, they have to leave the room, and you can't participate in the section of the vote that includes them. Like the playoff takes that really seriously. Coaches poll is like, no, rank your team wherever you want, man. it's like the Steve Spurrier thing we just mentioned, where he'd put his teams higher. I got no problem with Barry Odom putting his team over Illinois and Miami and South Carolina. Do whatever you want, man. You like your team. I will say UNLV did not have any great wins this season. Ultimately, they beat Houston and Kansas early on, but neither of them made bowl games. They lost to Syracuse in overtime. Good game. Lost to Boise in kind of two close games. So they were competitive in their three losses. They finished 11-3. Beat Cal in the bowl game. Not a full Cal. But other than that, no really great wins. They beat San Jose State, I guess. Still a really good season for UNLV, top 25. I don't know if I'd put him at 17, but if I was the coach of the team, yes, I would.
Barry Odom, by the way, did not rank Alabama. Which
not
we need to
the only one.
We're going to talk about that now. Alabama, very divisive team, and I totally get why, because they were all over the map all season long. And we'll see, maybe the coaches didn't watch parts of it or did watch certain parts of it. I don't know. They were easily the most divisive team. So, do we want to start with the coaches that were not big fans of Alabama? Jamie Chadwell of Liberty, Alex Golesh, USF, Gus Malzahn, UCF, now at Florida State as offensive coordinator, and our guy Kenny Dillingham, all had Alabama outside the top 20. Jed Fish at Washington, Candy Umatalolo at San Jose State, our guy Barry Odom and Bronco Mendenhall at New Mexico, now at Utah State, all did not rank Alabama, which again is defensible. But the flip side of this, which is I think is very interesting, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, who did not play Alabama, had them 12th. Kirby Smart, who famously did play Alabama and lost to them, had them 12th as well. A lot of disagreement on the Crimson Tide, who, by the way, finished at number 17 in the polls. So it all balances itself out. What did you take away from these coaches sort of virtually arguing about the Tide? I'd like to hear this discussion in a room, personally.
I would. That'd be televised. I'd put that on ESPN.
Yes.
Where the coaches rank Alabama. I mean, look, they finished 9-4, the most losses for Alabama since 2007, Nick Saban's first year. You lost to two teams that were 6-6 in the regular season. It is defensible. I mean, I ultimately put them at 15 because of the wins.
Yeah,
and I felt they needed to be ahead of South Carolina. So, I think Alabama may be unranked based on the standard that all these coaches have for Alabama. Like, this isn't what Alabama should be. That's why they unranked them. But it's interesting. This is why we love the final coaches poll.
Yeah, because you got to put it on paper. I do think the most interesting thing is like the coaches of the really, really good teams. I don't know if you're just looking at personnel and you look at it and you say, well, they had them really, really high. And the coaches of the G5 teams and teams with lesser rosters. Now, I will say, USF and Golesh, they played Alabama this year. Those teams had them generally lower.
USF had Alabama on the ropes
2 years in a
the
row.
last 2 years.
2 years.
I mean,
in
Alabama.
A row.
The fourth quarter didn't go well, but Alex Golesh's team, which finished 7-6 and barely in the top 100 for me, did have Alabama on the ropes. He more than anybody probably has a good case to make for not ranking Alabama in the top 25.
Yeah. I don't know about outside the top 25 is defensible, but
I don't think
Bama was a weird team, weird season for them this year.